Stop living in the past, that's what people say. The here and now and planning for the future is what matters. Sometimes, though, the past is comfortable, and us humans cling to it and try to keep it alive. No community, however, wears their rose-tinted spectacles with more pride than the gaming community, and countless modern games have banked on nostalgia to win the hearts of misty-eyed gamers the world over. Colourful 2D platformers, pixel art RPG adventures, blocky boomer shooters, and more have graced modern platforms in recent years, proving that the market for retro-style games is thriving. The thing is, making an old-school-looking game for modern consoles is just entry-level nostalgia. Having the dedication and bravery to release brand new content for long-defunct platforms, now that is the ultimate testament to a developer's commitment to the retro scene. It's these games that we're looking at today, and we've rounded up 10 titles that were released in the modern era of gaming for platforms that went out of print years ago and only exist now in cardboard boxes in attics or shelves in snazzy dedicated gaming rooms or in the CEX window display with exorbitant price tags attached to them. Let's have a look, shall we? I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 modern games that were released on retro platforms. Number 10. Blazing Rangers. Whilst its title comes close to encroaching on Sega's long-forgotten firefighting extravaganza, Blazing Rangers doesn't have too much in common with Burning Rangers, well, aside from the whole firefighting thing. Released on the NES in 2021, Blazing Rangers sees players taking control of a funky firefighter and tackling blazing buildings filled with civilians in need of rescue. Each screen presents a tricky layout that the firefighters must navigate, avoiding or extinguishing flames and the fiery creatures that spawn from within them, and bringing survivors to the exit. Rescuing multiple civilians at once slows the player down but results in bigger points hauls, creating a handy risk-reward mechanic for high score hunters. Blazing Rangers players will also be spending a lot of time thinking about the length of their hose, which may or may not be relatable to some of you. The water gun that the characters carry around with them is far less effective at fighting back flames, but the hose can only reach so far into the level. Luckily, there are power-ups available that extend your hose's length, and they actually work too, not like those ones you keep getting emails about. Immature hose jokes aside, Blazing Rangers is a colourful, imaginative and wholesome experience that really lit a fire under retro gaming fans. Get it? While it's hot. Number 9. Bravery Witch Chronicles. When you picture a game for the Commodore 64, the popular 8-bit home computer originally released in 1982, you'd likely think of something that's fairly limited. Bravery Witch Chronicles, which was released for the venerable system in 2021, is anything but. This RPG adventure offers about 16 hours of gameplay, including turn-based combat, an involved story, and more occult intrigue than you can shake an enchanted broom at. Following the story of the first 4 Bravery Witch Chronicles books, the pixelated delight puts players in control of the titular protagonist as she finds herself transported to the strange village of Maypole along with her cat, Smokey. With Smokey gaining the ability to talk and Bravery finding herself powered up with some witch-based magical abilities, a mystical adventure ensues where Bravery must avoid the attentions of the witch hunters and confront the dark spirit that resides in the nearby woods. Developed by Sarah Jane Avery, who also wrote the books upon which it is based, Bravery Witch Chronicles is a whimsical tale that is more comfy than creepy, so you can rest assured that Bravery Witch and Blair Witch are two very different animals. Don't worry though, horror fans, we've got some spookiness coming later on. Number 8. Mysterious Song. Let's get mysterious for a while, as this very mysterious RPG first surfaced in the year 2000 as an MS-DOS release. In the year 2000, most gamers were immersing themselves in the likes of The Sims, Deus Ex, or Perfect Dark, and the retro movement hadn't really picked up steam yet, making this darkness ethereal developed adventure something of a trailblazer. Why are we bringing it up here then? Well, in 2012, a homebrew developer known as Frozen Utopia decided to port this retro title to the TurboGrafx CD of all things, which is a CD add-on for the TurboGrafx 16, or the PC engine outside of North America. Touted as an experience in the vein of the early Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games, Mysterious Song was well received by those who acquired the MS-DOS version and those TurboGrafx CD owners who were holding out for one more great RPG for their beloved system, yes, all 4 of them, must have been elated. This version of the intriguing medieval fantasy with turn-based combat is quite the curiosity, and I find myself really wanting to know what that mysterious song was all about. Suppose I'll just have to dust off the old TurboGrafx CD. I'm joking, I don't own one of those. Number 7. Duck Attack. Have you ever been attacked by a duck? No, me neither, but it can happen. I've seen videos. Luckily for sufferers of real-life duck-related incidents, IRL ducks aren't twice the height of a human and capable of breathing fire. They are in Duck Attack though, a 2010 game released for the very old and creaky Atari 2600 console. In the game, a mad scientist has seen fit to create an army of mutated fire-breathing ducks that exhale fiery projectiles and are capable of laying toxic eggs. The mad scientist's plan is to somehow use those eggs to take over the world. I don't know how, and it's the hero's job to nab these potentially radioactive omelets while avoiding the attentions of their aggressive creators. Players can choose to play with all of the eggs and power-ups in previously determined locations for a consistent experience, or can allow the game to randomize where the eggs are found so that Duck Attack can remain challenging even if you're an egg-hunting veteran. It's a wacky title that evokes the weirdness that early games were capable of despite the limited hardware. Giant mutated fire-breathing ducks might seem odd in today's gaming scene, but alongside the likes of Attack of the Mutant Camels and Bugaboo the Flea, it fits in quite nicely. Number 6. Deadeus. Here's that horror game you were promised, and on the Game Boy no less, a console so far removed from horror that the scariest thing you can expect to see from it is the low battery life and some Lavender Town shenanigans. Releasing in a limited collector's box with a snazzy clear cartridge, Deadeus is what happens when Silent Hill meets Link's Awakening with comfy looking visuals that are at odds with its disturbing content. Putting players in the shoes of a young boy who has a premonition that everyone will die in 3 days, the aim of the game is to attempt to save as many people as possible through your actions, and some of the decisions that you're forced to make can be entirely unpleasant. Echoing Majora's Mask's creepy motif and 3-day timer, yet still managing to forge an identity of its own, Deadeus has plenty of scope for replayability, with 11 possible endings achievable depending on actions taken through the game. These factors, along with its genuinely unsettling atmosphere and excellently eerie music, make Deadeus an experience that hardened handheld horror fans should definitely seek out. Just be careful if your Game Boy starts turning itself on in the middle of the night. Ooh. Number 5. Intrepid Izzy. While Intrepid Izzy was first released on Steam in 2020, it saw a surprising physical release on the Dreamcast a year later, although it released in a normal dual case rather than those weird double-opening Dreamcast cases that we got in PAL territories. Where would you even get those made nowadays, anyway? Inconsistent case grumbles aside, Dreamcast owners were pretty grateful for Intrepid Izzy's appearance on the console, with the game being a Metroidvania-type platformer with big jolly sprites, a happy color palette, and a gameplay style that brings to mind a plethora of classics from Wonder Boy to Street Fighter. The game starts off with Izzy doing the Lara Croft thing of fiddling with an artifact that unleashes an ancient evil upon the world, and before you can say well enough alone, she's platforming her way through locations with names like Blobby Blob Dungeon and the Chocolate Mine. She can even visit Awesome Town, which has its very own arcade. Intrepid Izzy adventured her way to modern consoles a year after her Dreamcast escapade, so it's very easy for modern gamers to find, even if they don't have Sega's swan song console in their gaming collection, or those who aren't intrepid enough to dig it out and check if it's still working anyway. Number 4. Gunlord. Modern gamers might be familiar with this Turrican-inspired run-and-gun shooter, as it has been released on the Switch and PS4 under the name Gunlord X. Far more interestingly, however, is that back in 2012 the game was released not only on the Dreamcast, but on the Neo Geo too. Known as just Gunlord back then, the German-developed title puts players in the role of the snappily named Gordian Gaiden, a heroic soul with access to a superpowered Gunlord suit and an evil empire to bring down one overpowered bullet at a time. Gunlord invited players to traverse unusually large and open levels that give the game an air of Metroidvania, with a Samus-esque morph ball ability making an appearance and plenty of hidden secrets to unearth. Reviewers appreciated the tight gameplay and expansive level design, and Gunlord was seen as a Game of the Year contender by some, despite releasing on dead consoles and having a brutal difficulty level typical of many of the games it takes inspiration from. Gunlord X is easily available nowadays, and they even added on an autosave feature to make the whole thing a bit more manageable for us pampered modern gamers, meaning you don't have to be a certified Gunlord yourself to actually get anywhere in it. That's a bonus, I'd say. Number 3. PS Solar and the Great Architects. Of the two monsters of the 16-bit console era, the SNES is definitely more well known for its RPGs. The Mega Drive was certainly home to a couple of legendary adventures, but Nintendo's 16-bit powerhouse hosted bucketfuls of RPG greats that are still regularly talked about today. In 2010, a developer known as Watermelon did their bit to address this RPG disparity by releasing PS Solar and the Great Architects a full 13 years after the Mega Drive was discontinued in 1997. The game lived up to some of the best best RPGs of that era too, at least when it came to visuals, atmosphere, and soundtrack, the latter of which could be enhanced using the Mega CD add-on. The gameplay didn't stick the landing quite so well in the eyes of many, however, with Pier Solar and the Great Architect's labyrinthine dungeon design and difficult combat leading to occasional bouts of tedium. Still, if you absolutely need more RPGs on your Mega Drive shelf, Pier Solar and the Great Architects definitely looks and feels the part. It has also since been released for everything from the Dreamcast to the Ouya to the Xbox One, so should be fairly easy to seek out if you do happen to be interested in a bit of RPG architecture. Good luck getting the Ouya to work though. Number 2. Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death. From the Mega Drive to its 16-bit rival now with the ominously named Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death, which was released for the SNES in 2017. Definitely more than just a cartoony Indiana Jones wannabe with a boomerang, the titular adventurer wields his trusty curved stick as he explores treacherous caverns, climbs dangling vines, avoids enemies, and carefully circumvents plunging into seemingly ever-present lava pits. The aim of the game is to guide Sydney to safety, preferably with his pockets stuffed full of gems and other treasures, and progression is fairly straightforward, with players encouraged to locate artifacts that open new areas while seeking out pickups hidden in hard-to-reach places. As far as old-school exploration-based platformers go, it's definitely worth checking out, especially for SNES fans who've exhausted their system's platformer library. What's that? The SNES isn't retro enough for you? Too many bits, you say? Alright, old-timer, how about the ColecoVision instead? Yes. That's right, Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death was also released for that console in 2019, and delightfully 8-bit it is too. Does the drop in colours and pixels make all those skeletons and lava-filled caverns less intimidating or more intimidating? I honestly can't decide. Number 1. Xeno Crisis. We thought we'd round things off today with a title that's been released in physical form for pretty much any post-8-bit retro console you can think of. Smash TV-influenced top-down shooter Xeno Crisis is capable of gracing the physical gaming collection of enthusiasts of the Mega Drive, SNES, Dreamcast, N64, GameCube, Neo Geo, and more. It even got a physical release on the PS Vita, which is definitely discontinued, if not exactly retro. It's not retro, is it? No, because that would make me retro, and I'm only 31. Developed by Bitmap Bureau, Xeno Crisis takes players to Outpost 88, which is a scientific outpost that's been overrun by pesky aliens. The main characters, hardened marines that they are, aren't going to stand for that kind of extraterrestrial activity, and so a chaotic gunfight ensues. The aim of the game is to clear out rooms of invaders before moving on, rescuing stricken allies and picking up power-ups as you go. Once enough progress has been made, a sinister boss will make an appearance, take out this behemoth, and it's on to the next stage. It's simple, action-packed, pixelated paradise, and like all the other titles on our list, is part of a growing movement of retro releases that shows there's still life in the old consoles yet. Long live retro, that's what we say.